The Golden Cage is a game about a destiny, a beastman captured and sold to a prince. In her new home, she becomes a pet, but the overbearing prince soon sinks into an obsession with her. Complex intrigue, passion, and secrets unfold in this gripping story of freedom and love in the Golden Cage of Fate. On a bright afternoon, the sun illuminated the branches topped with a light blanket of snow. The castle walls were adorned with a sprinkling of white snow, as if by a magical touch of winter. The air was filled with freshness, and the crystal snowflakes shimmered, creating a magical picture of frozen beauty in this enchanting moment. However, she being a beastman, she possessed warmth in her heart. Today, she decided to risk her freedom again and attempted to escape. Her eyes glittered with determination, and there was tension in the air like a winter wind, a harbinger of change in this cold but bright world. She tried painfully to tie the rope against the wall of her confinement, but a stubborn, invisible force prevented her. It was as if the castle walls sensed her desperate attempt and breathed heavily, blocking her path to freedom. Her nameless, suffering soul, despite her failure, burned with the desire to be free in this nameless but harsh world. Her hands, stretched out against the frozen wall of freedom, became heavy and brittle, as if glued to the cold surface. Winter's icy kiss burned her fingers, making her attempts to free herself all the more difficult. But the unquenchable spark of determination continued to burn in her eyes, despite the icy shackles surrounding her bright but frozen destiny. With a firm mind and unyielding will, she continued to try to tie the rope into a knot, despite the cold that chilled her hands. She stared steadfastly into the eyes of the frozen wall, refusing to surrender to her unyielding fate. In every gesture of her frozen fingers, there was hope for a brighter tomorrow in this golden cage of dark mystery. Suddenly, out of the shadows, a stranger appeared. Mysterious at that very moment, he stepped into the light of the dim confinement. His gaze was full of mystery, like a winter sky, and he watched the efforts of an unnamed soul trying to handle the rope. Unknowable intentions remained in the shadows, adding another layer of mystery to this golden cage. With persistence and determination, she continued to try to climb over the wall, thinking that if her life had been a cinematic work, she might have crossed that barrier long ago. Her eyes flickered with shadows of who she might be in another reality. While in her current fate, the name continued to be lost in anonymity. He approached her, calmly saying that it was very high to jump here. His gaze was peaceful, as if he knew the secrets of this place. Without further ado, he raised his hand toward the wall as if to indicate that the answer to her longing might be in this seemingly insurmountable barrier. She looked up at him, wondering why he had appeared now. Questions flickered in her eyes, and she tried to understand how his presence might affect her attempts to overcome the wall. The mystery of his appearance enveloped her thoughts, creating a new layer of mystery in this golden cage of freedom struggles. He grabbed her hand and asked her why she had climbed up here. His gaze was insistent, as if he were searching her eyes for the answer. The tension in the air remained unresolved, as if he knew something important that she hadn't yet realized. The question remained hanging in the air like a clue to her mystery. He gave her some clothes to keep her warm. She looked at him with big eyes filled with gratitude and wonder. At that moment, amidst the icy walls and cold, his good deed enveloped her like a warm blanket. Her eyes sparkled like stars in the winter sky before him, the man who had brought a drop of human warmth into her cold, golden cage. She pondered which answer to choose to his question. Her eyes flickered, trying to hide the complex emotions that stirred her soul. She was faced with a choice, and she weighed the words that could reveal her story in this cold, golden cage. In her large eyes lurked secrets that she could choose to reveal or leave nameless. With determination in her eyes and voice, she declared that she would leave this place. Her words sounded like a ringing call to freedom inside this golden cage. She was expressing her determination to change her destiny, even though there might be an unknown abyss behind the wall. At that moment, her soul was filled with an incredible power, ready to overcome all obstacles in search of freedom. But in her heart, she knew her words were a bluff. There was a shadow of doubt and fear in her eyes through the determination. Perhaps she was trying to protect herself from something she was not yet ready to discover or accept. In this golden cage of secrets and inner contradiction, she was hiding her true feelings, even from herself. Calmly, he replied that he could not let her go. There was a certain permanence in his voice, as if he were bound by the invisible ties of this mysterious place. His words became like invisible bars holding her in this golden cage. At that moment, a new wave of questions pierced her eyes, and a shadow of disappointment enveloped her determined face. She told him not to even think he could lock her up. As she spoke, her face began to redden, as if expressing not only her willpower, but also her passion for freedom. Her gaze sparkled with defiance, and her determination was intertwined with tenderness. In that moment, she was opening not only the doors of her soul, but also her willingness to resist, despite the difficulty of the situation. He calmly continued his message, pointing out the cold behind the wall and warning her that she was unprepared to leave. Apologizing, he admitted that he had disappointed her. There was concern in his voice and some sort of realized inability to grant her freedom. At that moment, their gazes met, and in the shadows of that place lurked the uncertainty and complexity of their relationship. He said he would be sure to see to it that she was truant. There was a promising note in his words, as if he was eager to provide her with some sort of security in this cold world. Despite the difficulties, his voice sounded like a comfort, and a hope flashed in it that something better awaited outside this golden cage. She said she would fly out of this golden cage anyway. Her voice sounded determined, as if she was ready to put her words into action. Her eyes glimmered with a free soul, and she expressed her willingness to change, even if the walls of this cage were still impenetrable. At that moment, she was an indomitable wind, ready to carry her away. He continued his speech calmly, and said he was sorry she didn't like the cage he had bought for her. Immediately, he promised to remove it from her room. There was a sense of compensation and concern in his words, as if he was trying to rebuild trust and make up for his mistake. But in the shadow of his words lay the complexity of the situation, and the questions remained unresolved. Her eyes lit up and she asked if he could buy an aquarium. New hopes and expectations glimmered in that question. Her inquiry was like a metaphor for freedom and a new beginning, something bright and picturesque in a castle of cold walls. The answers to such questions sometimes sound more than a request for an object, and it was as if in this moment she was trying to find a tiny corner of warmth in this golden cage. She said it without thinking, and there was disappointment in her voice. There was a moment of realization in her eyes that things had not gone according to plan. That question about the aquarium was a kind of symbol of shattering illusions, leaving a trail of unfulfilled expectations in the air. In that moment, she realized that even in her golden cage, where everything seemed to be under control, life could take unexpected turns. And having said that, he suggested that they visit the palace, declaring that it was too cold here and it was better for all of them to leave. There was a determination in his words to change their surroundings and perhaps offer them something new and more comfortable. He led them as if offering them a new chapter in this mysterious story, perhaps with new possibilities and changes. The sound of the fire was heard, its warmth spreading throughout the room. Now, on the threshold of change and departure from this cold, golden cage, the warmth of the fire created coziness and hope for a new stage. The sounds of the crackling fire filled the space, as if reminding us that even in the most difficult moments, we can find warmth and light. There was hot tea and a piece of cake on the table. This unexpected image of a warming treat created a pleasant atmosphere, as if inviting them to enjoy the moment in this cold, golden cage. The sound of tea drinking was accompanied by the smell of fragrant tea and sweet cake, as if inviting them to share the warmth and comfort in this moment of change. She sat wrapped in a blanket and said that even though he had caught her today, that he wouldn't think he could break her spirit. She assured him that she would always strive for freedom. Her words sounded like a statement of unwavering determination and independence, as if she was rising to the challenge even in this moment of turmoil and change in her life. In her eyes sparkled a free soul despite external circumstances. She wondered why he was smiling, and when she asked him, he answered with a question she didn't like. There might have been secrets lurking in his smile, and she was determined to unravel them. The answer was like a clue, an invitation to a conversation to uncover the essence of their interaction in this golden cage of change and emotion. In the original story, she was a pet striving for freedom, but the prince, whose ego was shaken by her striving, turned into an obsessive possessor. His desire for control led to a conflict between freedom and power. She wondered why his gaze was so warm. That warmth seemed a mystery, a contradiction to his earlier obsession. In his eyes, she saw not only a desire for control, but something deeper, understanding and tenderness. Perhaps a new, sincere affection was awakening inside him. She restlessly continued the conversation, expressing a desire to leave. When he touched her face gently, however, she felt a strange intermingling of fear and warmth. That moment revealed to her that perhaps running away from him was impossible. His touch was not only demanding but also mesmerizing. She, frightened and confused, snuggled under the blanket, ordering him away. In the shadows of the fabric, her heart pounded with indefinable emotions, fear and involuntary attraction. She realized that this sensual play had become part of their relationship, leaving her wondering where this intricate dance was taking them. Wrapped in the blanket, she pondered his actions, wondering why he kept looking for her. Mysterious hints flickered in her thoughts, as if he might be enjoying this game of pursuit. She sensed that despite his desire for control, something inside him was changing, and that variable was creating a complex web of feelings. And despite their complicated emotions, they both fell asleep together. At that moment, as they lay side by side, it seemed that all tensions and conflicts were gone. His head rested on her shoulder, creating an image of sweet weariness. Sleeping, they looked as if there were no more barriers in the world, only the world of their dreams. She stood up suddenly, trying to push him away, smiling gently at him. He, sensing her playful resistance, joked, but after her persistent attempts, he agreed to give in and gave way. Laughing, they exchanged glances, finding in this light moment a new, unexpected understanding. He, sensing her playful resistance, took her hand, inviting it to his. The moment their fingers intertwined, a gentle warmth hung in the air. They exchanged silent glances, as if that gesture were the secret bond they shared, touchingly unraveled in the moment of barely perceptible touch. She abruptly took her hand back, pulling away from his unexpected caress. There was a mixture of surprise and possible discomfort in her movement. Their gazes met in silence, each experiencing the moment in their own way. The mysterious episode had created an irreconcilable tension, leaving unspoken questions in the air. She, separated from him, was brooding in her thoughts. Her gaze flashed with perplexity, trying to understand why he was suddenly so gloomy. In the back of her mind, she was speculating on possible causes, creating a mysterious cloud of mystery in their relationship. She pondered, looking at him with wonder, and realized that he had never shown such moodiness before. Her musings on his changing moods added to the mystery of the moment. Through the secrets of his emotions, she tried to penetrate the essence of what was going on inside him, remaining on the edge of understanding and misunderstanding. She pushed him away, telling him to stay away because it was too hot. At this point, her actions expressed a mixture of irritation and determination to maintain personal space. By pushing him away, she was clearly expressing the need for limits and clear boundaries in their relationship. He suddenly set her down on the bed, holding the gaze that met her eyes piercingly. In that moment of silence, an intense energy hung between them, as if their gazes spoke a language that required no words. The mixture of passion and intrigue created a moment full of emotional tension and uncertainty. She looked at him with a flushed face, admiration flickering in her eyes. At that moment, her mind was filled with thoughts of his beauty, and she could not help but marvel at his appearance. The emotional explosion inside her created a moment filled with secret desires and inexpressible attraction. The emotion made her confused, and a sudden feeling of uncertainty swept through her. An unpredictable impulse caused her to suddenly push him away, creating some distance between them. Her gaze was a mixture of apology and embarrassment, as if she herself had not expected such a reaction to her own emotions. He, sensing her mixed emotions, took her hands and kissed them gently. The gesture was like an attempt to reassure her, to convey tenderness and understanding. In this moment of silence and affection, he was trying to break the tension created by their unexpected interaction. Calling her beautiful Yu-jin, he continued to hold her hands, radiating tenderness and respect. This affectionate address created a spiral of tenderness and made it clear that even in moments of confusion and uncertainty, he saw something special and beautiful in her. She, still confused, could not believe that he was the one who was speaking so tenderly to her. Her eyes flashed with mingled feelings of amazement, bewilderment, and some secret attraction. The world around them seemed shrouded in mystery, and she remained in a state of slightly confused admiration. She looked into his eyes and thought, "Who is he?" Her mind was spinning with questions and thoughts, trying to unravel the mystery of this man. The mystery of his personality and his unexpected actions left a trace of mystery in her soul, making her question what he brought to her life. Sung Yu-jin, under constant pressure and yelling at work, feels depressed. However, strength and determination lurk in her inner world. She longs for change, dreaming of a more supportive environment. Her decision to restore the balance between work and well-being promises her new opportunities and inner freedom. Sung Yu-jin, after hearing her boss criticize her report, feels depressed. However, she decides to use this as an incentive to improve. Her inner strength pushes her to rethink her approach and make the next report better, showing her determination to overcome difficulties. Song Yu-jin felt heavy under the pressure from everyone around her, especially after being criticized by her superiors. Questions about her future plans at work became extra time. Despite this, a determination grew within her to change her circumstances, find a new path, and prove that she was capable of overcoming all difficulties. A co-worker noticed Song Yu-jin's distressed state and took her aside, showing concern. Asking if everything was okay, he created a trusting environment, allowing her to share her feelings. At that moment, the co-worker's support became a source of comfort and possible understanding of the problems. A colleague invited Sung Yu-jin to the conversation, expressing a desire to discuss their team's work. This move shows a desire to create an open dialogue and improve collaborative interaction. In such an exchange, understanding and cooperation can blossom, which would help resolve potential problems. Sung Yu-jin, suddenly exploding, starts yelling at her colleague, claiming that she complied with his request, but she's not going to cover for his accomplishments. She clearly expresses her frustration with the situation, refusing to accept responsibility for someone else's accomplishments and seeking to protect her integrity. A colleague, with a mocking smile, announced that he would be leaving the place soon. His words, accompanied by a nasty grin, may be an expression of displeasure or even a threat. This moment can create additional tension in team relations and emphasize the negative environment in the workplace. The coworker, while maintaining a nasty smile, added that he heard from the HR department about Song Yu-jin's imminent departure. This statement is probably intended to increase her pressure and create anxiety about the professional future coworker. The situation becomes more complicated, emphasizing the tension between coworkers. Song Yu-jin, deciding not to tolerate further pressure and tension, took her belongings and left the place. Her decision to leave her workplace may be a strategic move to protect herself and find a more supportive environment. At this point, she is probably seeking a new beginning, freedom, and better prospects. Walking down the road, Song Yu-jin pondered why she had been patient for so long. Perhaps the realization of her boss's anger issues and the complexity of her professional environment had pushed her to take a drastic step. Her reflection most likely centered on finding meaning in maintaining her health and well-being by moving away from a toxic work situation. Sung Yu-jin reflected as she left that she may have given too much of her time to those around her. Her decision to leave an environment where her efforts were not fully appreciated may be an attempt to restore balance and focus on more favorable opportunities. Perhaps she realizes the value of her time and seeks a place where her efforts will be appreciated. Sung Yu-jin, walking down the road despite her tears, strived to convey her own value as an office worker to her parents. Her emotions reflect her desire for recognition and respect from her loved ones. Such moments of weakness can be a driver for self-discovery and a new phase in one's professional life. Sung Yoo-jin may have felt frustrated and had her self-esteem questioned, believing herself to be a fool because of the effort invested in office work. It is important to remember that professional hardship does not determine personal worth. This moment may have been an opportunity to reevaluate her priorities and find an area where she can truly flourish. Song Yoo-jin looked up and noticed a poster advertising dog food. Perhaps this moment was some kind of symbolic signal or analogy to a new beginning. It may have triggered in her the thought of taking care of herself, of finding something more satisfying and meaningful than her previous experience in the office. Sung Yoo-jin, seeing a poster with a picture of a dog and the caption, "Eugenie is the #1 dog in the world," might have found something inspiring. It may have been a hint to her of a new path where she could evaluate herself higher and find recognition in a more suitable field. This moment could be the start of her own development and happiness. Sung Yoo-jin, seeing the image of a happy dog, remembered the carefree life of these animals and began to reflect on how wonderful it would be to become a dog in her next life. Perhaps this is an expression of a desire to experience the simplicity, joy, and unconditional love that often characterizes the lives of dogs. This fantasy setting may be a way to explore the idea of ease and joy in life. The semaphore turning green for pedestrians signaled Song Yoo-jin to move forward. With her phone in hand, she crossed the road. Sung Yoo-jin, while crossing the road with her phone in hand, suddenly noticed a car moving at a high speed towards her. This may have created tension and required an instant reaction, a sudden moment of bad luck. Sung Yoo-jin was hit by a car before she could dodge. This accident brought an unexpected twist to her day, creating a situation that required an ambulance and intervention from the emergency services. Song Yoo-jin, alas, has passed away. Her body rests with her legs seemingly shrunken and her arms broken, resembling thin twigs. This loss leaves a shadow of grief, evoking memories of her life and suffering. May her soul rest in peace and her loved ones express their condolences at this difficult time. Song Yoo-jin woke up and felt a mixture of reality and dream. Perplexity reigned in her mind. She couldn't determine where she was. A moment of confusion and disorientation filled her. Unanswered questions swirled around in her head, creating a sense of uncertainty in the new awakening. Song Yoo-jin, smelling the disgusting odor, wondered about her whereabouts and who all these children around her were. Suddenly, she felt like she was in a different, unfamiliar world where everything was alien and mysterious. The unknown reality created a feeling of disorientation and uncertainty. One girl approached Song Yoo-jin and asked if she was thirsty, expressing concern. With her asking if everything was okay, the girl expressed her attention to Song Yoo-jin's well-being, creating a moment of genuine concern in this unknown environment. The girl not only expressed her concern, but also offered Song Yoo-jin a bowl of water. This gesture of kindness and consideration allows her to feel supported and comforted in an unknown environment, softening the beginnings of misunderstanding. Song Yoo-jin, looking at her reflection in the water, questioned herself, "Who is that? Who is the little kid with white hair?" Perhaps the unrecognized reflection was creating her misunderstanding of her own appearance and inner state in this mysterious place. Song Yoo-jin, feeling the need for water, drank all the liquid contained in the bowl. This action may be a manifestation of her physical and emotional response to the unknown, as well as a desire to fulfill basic needs in this mysterious environment. The girl who offered the water asks Sung Yoo-jin if she feels better. Given the new acquaintance and kindness, a mutual understanding may be starting to transpire between them, and Song Yoo-jin may be starting to recognize this girl. The description of the girl with brown hair, green eyes, and triangular ears provided by Song Yoo-jin begins to put together an image of this mysterious figure. These details of appearance may be the key to recognizing and remembering the one who offered water and showed care. Sung Yoo-jin realized that the girl with brown hair, green eyes, and triangular ears was named Canis, the main character of the mobile game Golden Cage she was playing. This discovery adds a virtual reality element to her adventure, immersing her in an amazing off-screen world. By asking if Prince Michael has appeared, Sung Yoo Jin is apparently trying to understand how the real world of the Golden Cage game is intertwined with her current situation. Asking about the character's appearance may indicate her involvement in the virtual story and her desire to make sense of what is happening around her. The story of Prince Michael takes an interesting turn. It turns out that the prince was obsessed with Canis, which led to her imprisonment. This dramatic situation adds complexity to the plot of the Golden Cage game and makes Prince Michael the most popular character. Song Yoo-jin may have found herself in a world where virtual reality is beginning to intertwine with real reality. Apparently, after meeting Canis outside of the game world, he asked Song Yoo-jin to calm down. This may be an attempt by a character from the game to bring calmness to a situation that is unfamiliar and possibly frightening to her. Sung Yoo-jin may be experiencing an emotional transition between virtual and real life. Song Yoo-jin, stunned by the events, asked Canis what her name was. Canis answered, but Sung Yoo-jin could not believe that she was inside the game. A new reality was merging with her perception, and she was faced with questions and surprises in this amazing world where the boundaries between virtuality and reality were beginning to be washed away. Song Yoo-jin, while trying to remember her nickname in the game, gave her name as Yoo-jin. This may be an attempt to link her real identity with her virtual self in the game world, where she faces the intertwining of the two spheres of her life. Canis noted that Yoo-jin had a beautiful name and asked if she had calmed down. After receiving a positive answer, Yoo-jin thanked her for the water. This moment may indicate the gradual establishment of communication and understanding between the characters in this unique context. Canis asked Yoo-jin if she would like to tell her how she got here, adding that everyone there shares their stories. Perhaps this friendly conversation will give Yoo-jin the opportunity to share her experiences and hear other characters' stories, helping them to better understand this world. Yoo-jin asked Canis why she would tell her story. This question may reflect her bewilderment and desire to understand the purpose behind the suggestion of sharing stories in this unusual world. Canis explained that knowing how Yoo-jin ended up here, one can look for ways to get out of this slave shop. This brings a new perspective and puts the focus on finding a way out of the current situation, making the story an important part of the liberation strategy. Yoo-jin suddenly recalled a scene from the game that describes the robot store from the first episode. Canis was looking for a way to escape, and this detail adds to the complexity of understanding how the virtual world intertwines with their current reality. The plot becomes increasingly mysterious and intriguing. Although Yoo-jin's sudden recollection concerns a scene from the game, she admitted that she has no recollection of it. This may add complexity to their quest to unravel the mysteries and understand how they ended up in this mysterious place. Ignorance and memory loss create additional mysteries in their journey. In addition to recalling a scene from the game, Yoo-jin realized that Prince Michael was the first important event. This additional detail highlights the importance and significance of the virtual characters in their lives, perhaps playing a key role in their current circumstances and ability to understand how they came to be in this mysterious world. The prince slowly approached the iron cage, his gaze locked on the girl inside. Her eyes emitted a mysterious glow, as if they held the secrets of the universe. The prince, confused, pondered the strange things that might have tied their fates together. There was silence in the cage, interrupted only by the whisper of the wind, which carried the portents of change. The prince plunged into the depths of her blue, large eyes. They reflected some mysterious and attractive power, as if they were a window to another world. At that moment, the prince felt that those eyes carried with them something magical that could change his life. He could not tear himself away, immersing himself in the mysterious depths of her gaze. The prince watched in amazement as the second girl, Canis, began to growl at him, while the first girl maintained her mysterious silence. The second girl's growls were like a menacing echo, filling the space with a mysterious energy. The prince felt a strange interconnection between them, as if they possessed something supernatural and unfathomable. The prince approached the merchant. his gaze fixed on the strange artifacts on the counter. He silently pointed them out, raising an eyebrow questioningly. The merchant, with knowledge that shone through his mysterious smile, began to slowly reveal the origin of each item. The prince absorbed the information without uttering a word, realizing that a world of uncharted secrets was opening up before him. The prince listened to the merchant, who described the artifacts as beastmen of the wolf kind. The merchant spoke admiringly of their skill in using them, emphasizing their outstanding intelligence and cunning. The prince gazed thoughtfully at the items, trying to pick up on the secret nuances in their nature, realizing that these beastmen could bring something unique to his adventurous life. The prince, pointing to the beastmen, asked the merchant about the price. In response, Canis, one of the girls, began to growl again, adding a strange element to the discussion. The prince, confused and a little shocked, continued to wait for the merchant's response, sensing that something more mysterious and inexplicable lurked behind these artifacts. Yujin thought that the moment of the first important choice had arrived. Her thoughts were filled with possibilities and uncertainties, creating an atmosphere of excitement and determination. Her inner dialogue was a complex labyrinth where every decision could affect her future. The game was excitingly paced, and the ending hinged on the decisions the prince made. His choices interacted with the world around him, the characters and the mysterious elements of the plot, filling the story with intrigue and surprises. At this point, the game world seemed full of possibilities, and each decision had its share of influence in creating a unique ending, shaping the final epilogue of the prince's adventures. Yujin reflected on her desires and came to the conclusion that she had always wanted to be the loyal dog of a wealthy master. These thoughts about her role may have brought her a sense of security and confidence, creating a unique path for her own adventures and explorations. Suddenly, Yujin started shouting at the prince, her normally calm eyes filled with rage. The abrupt transition from quiet reflection to an aggressive expression caused the prince to be surprised, who remained standing, trying to understand the reason for this sudden display of emotion. A tense atmosphere hung in the air, as if something important and unexpected had just happened. Yujin's shout echoed in the air, causing everyone around her to freeze in shock. A silence fell, broken only by her angry words. The prince and the surrounding characters stood frozen in amazement as they tried to comprehend the unexpected occurrence. Yujin's emotional outburst had created an unexpected twist in the story, leaving a mark on the minds and hearts of the characters in this fantasy world. The prince, with surprise in his voice, asked the merchant if this girl was also a beast man. The merchant, with certainty, replied that she was human. This unexpected information left the prince confused, revealing new mysteries and questions in their exciting adventure. The prince, his gaze fixed thoughtfully on the merchant, was deep in thought. His eyes flickered with an inexpressible mixture of curiosity, surprise, and possible anxiety. A silent dialogue ensued between them, where each of them, without uttering words, faced the sudden complexity of a world full of riddles and mysteries. Yujin, shouting at the prince, abruptly noticed that he was thinking about buying. "Don't think as if a person can be bought with money!" she shouted, her voice sounding angry and insistent. Her words sounded not only furious, but also condemned the idea that human life could be valued with material values. The prince looks up and nods decisively at the merchant, pointing at Yujin. In response to his gesture, the merchant nods silently in agreement. Emotions hang in the air, creating a tense atmosphere of uncertainty and mystery. Yujin pondered that if one were a newbie, it would be best to become a member of a great house. Her thoughts may have been filled with a desire for the prosperity, power, and privileges that come with high society. In this decision, one can see the desire to achieve a high status in society and receive the benefits associated with being a member of a noble house. The prince and Yujin slowly approached the gates of his realm. The majestic towers and walls slowly rose in front of them, creating an imposing impression. At this moment, the possible challenges and mysteries surrounding their adventure were becoming apparent. The gates of the kingdom heralded new challenges and adventures in their exciting journey. Yujin rushed in the prince's footsteps, the one mightily wielding his horse behind him. The dust was rising behind them, and the wind was blowing Yujin's hair. Her gaze was full of determination and anticipation of new adventures, while the prince, driven by his mission, raced forward, heading towards the gates of his kingdom. The running figures through the landscape created a picture of a dynamic and exciting journey. They entered the castle where they were met by two servants. The servants, upon seeing the prince and Yujin, expressed a polite greeting. An imposing man, the prince's loyal servant, accompanied them, providing all the information they needed. Together, they headed towards the heart of the castle, where the next stage of their adventure awaited. The prince, listening intently, stepped aside, instructing the servants to take care of Yujin. The servants, carrying out his instruction, offered Yujin assistance and guidance around the castle. Joining forces, they headed deep into the castle, where an atmosphere of mystery and possible discoveries hovered, waiting for the next turn in this exciting journey. The attendants, taking care of Yujin, decided to start by giving her a chance to relax. They gave her a bath, filling it with warm water with aromatic additives. As Yujin immersed herself in the bathtub, she felt the tension leave her body, and at this moment, the care of the attendants created a pleasant beginning for her stay in the castle. The attendants provided Yujin with care, giving her a cozy room where she could change her clothes. They carefully selected clothes for her that combined comfort and elegance. Considering her wealth and the prince's favor, the attendants tried to please and create a pleasant impression. Yujin, dressed in her new clothes, felt cared for and ready to continue her adventure in the castle. The maid looked at Yujin with curiosity and couldn't help but ask, "Why are you here?" Her eyes were filled with curiosity and waiting for an explanation. Yujin, looking into the maid's eyes, could feel the attention and some mystery associated with her presence in this great castle. Yujin, with big eyes, faced with the question, remained silently pondering, not knowing how to answer correctly. There was some confusion in her eyes, and she realized that she had to choose her words carefully to share part of her story without revealing all the secrets. A silent pause filled the room, waiting for her answer. Yujin, with big eyes, a look full of confusion, finally decided to say that she was her master's doggy. This statement left a sense of mystery and enigma in the air, and her silent gaze appealed for understanding and sympathy. Yujin's reply that she was her master's dog caused bewilderment and shock among the maids. Their facial expressions reflecting surprise and incomprehension created a moment of tension in the room. The mystery and enigma surrounding Yujin gave new nuances to the characters' interactions in this engaging story. Yujin pondered that if she thought of herself as her master's doggy, perhaps she should always be by his side. This thought of loyalty and attachment to the master, which was characteristic of dogs, created a special sense of loyalty and responsibility. Perhaps this idea filled her heart with mixed emotions as she thought about her role in this mysterious world. Yujin, affected by her inner musings, entered the prince's room. Her steps were cautious, and her gaze was filled with interest and perhaps anticipation. At this moment, there was an air of uncertainty in the room, and future turns of events seemed suspended in the air. Yujin, upon entering the prince's room, was struck by its splendor. The beauty and luxury of this room stunned her. The golden decorations, exquisite interior, and stained glass windows gave the impression of fairy tale splendor. Her gaze slowly slid around the room, absorbed in the exquisiteness of every detail. Surrounded by this beauty, she felt she had entered a world where reality and magic were intertwined. Feeling somewhat uncomfortable and seeking a more comfortable state, Yujin decided to take off her shoes. This simple act was an act of embracing her new surroundings, allowing her to feel less constrained in this luxurious space. In the softness of the floor beneath her feet, there may be some pause, bringing relief after the exhilarating visual experience of the room. Heated by the experience, Yujin decided to relax and laid down on the soft bed. She felt her body sink into comfort, and a smile appeared on her face. This moment of rest was a pleasant escape from events and encounters, opening up the opportunity for her to appreciate a moment of peace in this magnificent space. Lying on the soft bed, Yujin reflected on her past life on Earth, where it seemed that despite all the hardships and efforts, it was almost impossible to achieve anything. Her thoughts may have encompassed the moments of hard work and injustice she had endured. In that moment, she may have realized how much the new world offered her the opportunity to start fresh and change her destiny. Yu Jin, relying on her own thoughts and feelings, decides to make her own way in the new world. Her decision to live like a dog may reflect her desire for freedom, simplicity, and loyalty, as well as a break from previous commitments and restrictions. Now she is ready to write her new chapter in this wonderful and mysterious adventure. The prince who suddenly entered the room asked Yu Jin what she was doing here. His question meant that he had noticed her presence and was ready to hear her answer. Anticipation hung in the room, and Yu Jin could probably feel the prince's attentive gaze on her, which could change the course of their future interaction. With some mixed feeling and playfulness in her tone, Yu Jin, addressing the prince as a master, asked if she was his doggy. This statement carried an element of mystery and a hint of the earlier conversation about the role of a doggy, adding an air of interesting and unexpected conversation to the room. The prince's servants, upon hearing Yu Jin calling him master and asking if she was his dog, were shocked. Their faces expressed bewilderment and surprise at the unexpected turn of events. An uncomfortable silence hung in the room, and even the servants who were used to different situations were confused by the unusual conversation. The prince, noticing Yu Jin's mocking tone and perhaps disapproving of her words, stated firmly that he would not allow dogs in his bed. This statement by the prince expressed his status and expectations from others, and emphasized that there should be certain boundaries and respect for his personal space in their relationship. The prince, deciding to accept Yu Jin's unexpected status with the dog, ordered the servants to bring a dog box. This gesture by the prince could have been perceived as comical, or even a misunderstanding of her words, while the servants complying with the order could have mixed emotions in front of the unusual situation. The servants, stunned by the prince's unusual order, were confused, not knowing how to respond. Their facial expressions were perhaps a mixture of surprise, bewilderment, and even some embarrassment at the unexpected request. A tense silence hung in the room, while the servants faced the unexpected challenge and tried to figure out how to deal with the situation. The prince, seeing the servants' expressions at their bewilderment, decided to simplify the situation by simply ordering Yu Jin to be given the next room. This turn of events probably alleviated the awkwardness of the moment and removed the inconvenience caused by the unusual request. Now Yu Jin could have her own place to rest, and the tension in the room probably eased a bit. Yu Jin entered her room, and it was simply magical inside. Everything was sparkling with bright reflections, like stars in the night sky. The fragrance of flowers filled the air, creating a cozy and peaceful feeling. The room seemed to come alive with this harmony of light and fragrance, like a magical refuge from everyday worries. The servants hurriedly told Yu Jin that, if necessary, it would be enough to pull the small rope hanging in the corner. Without uttering a word, they emphasized that this small gesture would be the key to their attention and willingness to fulfill her requests in this magical space. The servants bowed to Yu Jin and whispered, "Good night." Their words sounded like a gentle whisper in the silence, filling the room with a peaceful atmosphere before going to sleep. Yu Jin smiled back at them, grateful for their care, and fell into a sweet sleep. Lying in her bed, Yu Jin tried to sleep while thinking about Prince Michael. She remembered how he had seemed indifferent to her presence at the beginning of the game. However, each subsequent moment with him had transformed her perception, creating an exciting contrast between the initial indifference and the mysterious attraction that had begun to blossom. Lying in the silence of her room, Yu Jin pondered thoughtfully. Thoughts of Prince Michael ran through her mind, and she realized that he was kinder than she had originally thought. Her heart softened as she realized that there was warmth and kindness behind the icy facade, causing her to reconsider her original views. The trouble started when the prince voiced his opinion, saying that he felt sorry for the beastmen he saw in the play. Those words left a shadow of resentment and misunderstanding in the air, creating tension between him and Yu Jin. Perhaps this was just the beginning of a complicated drama where every word had its own consequences. The girl with black hair and dark eyes glanced around, a look of surprise on her face. The unspoken words of her question echoed in the silence as she considered the conditions the beastmen seemed to be living in. The girl with black hair and dark eyes looked like a creature not of this world. Her appearance had a mysterious beauty and unusual grace, giving the impression that she was not just a human, but an enchanting being belonging to some other reality. She appeared implicitly, like the embodiment of a mysterious mystery. Her appearance seemed weightless and inexplicable, as if she had originated from the deepest corners of fantasy. An unknown history flickered in her eyes, leaving behind traces of an unknown past or future. When she unknowingly appeared, the emperor already had an empress. Her appearance caused vague feelings in the palace, creating a mysterious paradox in the reality of the imperial court. The unclear origin of the girl with dark hair and eyes brought an unpredictable element into the life of the empire, making everyone question her role and destiny. He was not moved by lost heads from love, marriage vows, or the newborn twins of a prince and princess. The emperor's inner world remained unchanged, like an impenetrable fortress. He went about his daily business as if unperturbed by worldly cares, oblivious to the disturbances that would throw others into awe. After the death of the empress in a carriage accident, scandals began to swirl around, raising the question of whether the emperor had allegedly murdered her himself. Shadows of suspicion and discontent made their way through the palace corridors, causing unrest in society. Even if it was an accident, rumors and intrigue turned the tragedy into a mystery, poisoning the atmosphere around the imperial court. The emperor raised Prince Michael with high hopes, wanting him to fulfill his high expectations as soon as possible. He wished the prince to become a worthy heir and a leader capable of continuing the cause of the empire. There was a sense of urgency in this upbringing, emphasizing the importance of reaching the prince's potential as soon as possible. Prince Michael was assigned assignments from childhood to study imperialism, ancient languages, and military science. The emperor sought to ensure that his successor had the maximum knowledge to successfully rule the empire. Such training from the earliest years prepared the prince not only for his future role as a leader, but also shaped him as an educated and competent ruler. Prince Michael was praised, calling him a genius. His abilities in the study of imperialism, ancient languages, and military science were admired by those around him. His attention to education, combined with his intelligence and determination, was building a reputation around him as a future great ruler. Such praise only strengthened hopes for his successful future governance of the empire. He was forced to study hard every day, including geometry and geography. The non-stop curriculum placed high demands on Prince Michael to shape his mind and prepare him for his future role as a ruler. This pursuit of knowledge every day set the stage for the prince's broad education and competence. He was forced to study hard every day, including geometry and geography. The non-stop curriculum placed high demands on Prince Michael to shape his mind and prepare him for his future role as a ruler. This pursuit of knowledge every day set the stage for the prince's broad education and competence, and in the evening, Prince Michael would delve into military studies, mastering tactics and strategy to become a skilled leader of a military force. After that, he would immerse himself in astronomy, studying the stars and planets to not only understand the world on the battlefield, but also the wide cosmos around him. This versatile education made him not only a strong military man, but also a deeply educated ruler. As part of his military training, Prince Michael conducted field classes that emphasized the study of mounted combat tactics. Great emphasis was placed on practical weapon skills on horseback, so that the prince would become not only a strategist, but also a master on the battlefield. These field trips brought an element of reality to the learning process, preparing the prince for possible combat scenarios. Busy with his studies and preparing for his future role as ruler, Prince Michael had no time for his personal life or childhood. His days were filled with responsibilities, military, astronomy, and philosophy classes that deprived him of the opportunity to enjoy relaxed moments. This demanding schedule molded him into a determined and dedicated leader. Prince Michael's teachers were restless, as the tasks he was given were incredibly difficult. even for adults. However, the prince successfully met these challenges with outstanding ability and determination. His academic success emphasized not only his unique talents, but also his willingness to persevere through hardships, which made the teachers proud and respectful. Prince Michael's teachers may not have realized the sacrifices he was making because of his extremely high learning load. He may have hidden his personal struggles and feelings, preferring not to share them with others. This internal burden of the loss of his childhood and personal life may have remained invisible to the outside world, despite his striving and sacrifice. Prince Michael was asked military questions, requiring him to explain his actions and imagine the real consequences if a human life were at stake. These questions were designed to assess his strategic thinking, ethical beliefs, and ability to weigh life-saving decisions. The prince had to demonstrate not only military and tactical prowess, but also a deep understanding of the human element in a combat environment. Prince Michael was asked military questions, requiring him to explain his actions and imagine the real consequences if a human life were at stake. These questions were designed to assess his strategic thinking, ethical beliefs, and ability to weigh life-saving decisions. The prince had to demonstrate not only military and tactical prowess, but also a deep understanding of the human element in a combat environment. The teachers were shocked by Prince Michael, not understanding where his feelings were. His emotional detachment caused bewilderment and surprise in their eyes. They may have had difficulty understanding the prince's inner world, in which feelings and emotions seemed absent, which could create a gap in communication and understanding. Having seen Prince Michael's success and his excellent ability to cope with difficulties, the emperor decided that the time had come to bring him into the government. It was a recognition of his efforts and willingness to take responsibility. The prince was about to enter a new phase of his training, getting closer to actually fulfilling his future role in the governance of the empire. The prince had received a summons from the provincial empire, and the emperor had tasked him to find out what had happened and then make a decision on the matter. This assignment set Prince Michael apart as a future leader, allowing him to show his competence and ability to manage complex situations. It also served as a test of his readiness for power and his ability to make important decisions on his own. Prince Michael showed excellent skills and dealt with all the issues proposed by the provincial empire. His ability to deal with complex situations, make sound decisions, and manage effectively attracted the attention of both the emperor and those around him. This success confirmed his readiness for his future role as ruler and strengthened his credibility in the eyes of the public. Yu Jin, sitting in her room, was still thinking about the prince, realizing that he didn't even know who she was. Her thoughts, like waves, shimmered with feelings over the fact that there was some unknown gap between them. The mystery and unsolvedness created an atmosphere of expectation and mystery around her, in which past encounters with the prince remained unsolved puzzles in her heart. The prince, sitting at his desk, thought that she was still asleep. His mind was busy thinking about past events, and he speculated that Yu Jin might still be resting. The secret unknowability around her personality and feelings created a mystery that the prince felt in his heart without inquiring about what might be happening in reality. He was long overdue for breakfast. Sitting at the table, the prince pondered over the upcoming business and the conversation with the provincial empire. The taste of the food was of secondary importance to him, for his mind was consumed with thoughts of the future and the decisions he had to make. Thus, breakfast became not only a meal, but also a time for inner reflection and preparation for the upcoming events. The prince, eating, asked the butler what was going on with his order. His curiosity centered on events and circumstances that could affect important decisions. Communicating with the butler was another way for the prince to get information. The butler cleverly hinted that the prince was referring to yesterday's instructions regarding Yu Jin. He was willing to provide information about the events surrounding Yu Jin and her role in palace affairs, despite the prince's unclear question. This created an additional layer of mystery in the setting, leaving the prince in the dark regarding the details. The butler informed the prince that in accordance with his instructions, the old game room had been provided as Yu Jin's booth. In addition, she had been provided with a maid to ensure her comforts. This information may have piqued the prince's interest in how Yujin accepted her new living arrangements and how it may have affected her interactions with others. With a serious expression, the butler showed the prince the shackles he had prepared for Yujin. This moment added tension to the atmosphere, creating questions as to why such measures were taken. The prince probably felt that his decision regarding Yujin could have far-reaching consequences, and the mystery surrounding this situation became even more mysterious. The prince, taking the fetters in his hands and examining them, said they were flimsy. He then ordered other fetters to be prepared. This statement may have reflected his disagreement with the use of force against Yujin and his demand for stronger restraints. The prince was thus demonstrating his power and determination to influence Yujin's treatment. Yujin walked over to the table and saw the beautiful, clinging shackles on it. This unexpected turn of events might have caused her to feel a sense of surprise and question the prince's intentions. The beauty of the shackles, despite their nature, could create a mysterious impression and give her a reason to further ponder her situation in the palace. Yujin, looking at the beautiful shackles, asked what it was. Her question could express not only misunderstanding, but also interest in the unexpected object that was offered as a symbol of her confinement in the palace environment. It also provided an opportunity for clarification or discussion of her situation with whoever had offered the shackles. The prince calmly explained to Yujin that he had shown her mercy last time by allowing her in his chambers out of his magnanimity. However, by claiming that she was too naive, he may have wanted to emphasize her inexperience and the need for a change in her behavior. It may also have been a reminder that there are certain rules and norms of behavior in the palace. The prince asserted that it was dangerous to roam here and therefore she would not be able to leave the palace. He then informed her that the proposed shackles were a means of restricting her freedom of movement. This information probably came as a surprise to Yujin, and she now realized that her actions and freedom were severely restricted within the confines of the palace. Yujin put the shackles around her neck and admired their beauty and brilliance. Her perception of this jewelry, despite its original purpose, could have been transformed into art or a symbolic expression of her strength and self-confidence. This moment may also reflect her ability to see the beauty within the limitations and alter their meaning in her own perception. The prince was surprised and perhaps even disbelieved that Yujin was finding beauty and disposition in this collar. His bewilderment could have been due to Yujin's unexpected perception, which might not have been what he expected. This created additional layers of misunderstanding and could have been the subject of a later conversation or discussion between them. The prince was surprised and perhaps even disbelieved that Yujin was finding beauty and disposition in this collar. His bewilderment could have been due to Yujin's unexpected perception, which might not have been what he expected. This created additional layers of misunderstanding and could have been the subject of a later conversation or discussion between them. The prince remarked that this was his assumption that she should not leave the palace. This remark may express his expectation and belief that she is better off staying within the palace walls, perhaps because of some dangers or difficulties he foresees for her outside the palace. Yujin enjoyed the moment in her room where the sun was shining and filling her with light. This moment could create a feeling of warmth and comfort, the opposite of the austerity of the palace environment. The bright light could also symbolize a new stage in her life despite the restrictions placed on her. There were maids around her at all times. This emphasized her status and position in the palace, and meant that her actions and movements could be closely monitored. The presence of maids could also be related to her various duties, or to her comfort in her new environment. The maids offered various delicious treats to Yujin, perhaps in an attempt to make her stay more pleasant and comfortable. Offering tasty treats could have been a caring gesture to create a positive experience and improve her mood in a new place. Yujin did not deny herself anything, and probably accepted the offered goodies with gratitude. This moment may reflect her willingness to accept and enjoy what was provided to her in her new environment. Perhaps this was one way of adapting and finding joy in the limited conditions of the palace. Yujin thought that in the game, Canis and Prince Michael were about the same age. This may have created some analogy or parallel between their characters in the game, and their real lives. The perception of their age in the context of the game may have influenced how she perceived their relationship and the dynamics between the characters. Yoo-jin may have thought that she looked younger than her age because of malnutrition. This thought may reflect her anxiety or realization that poor diet may be affecting her physical condition. In such situations, people sometimes begin to notice the effects of diet on their appearance, and this can cause anxiety about their health and appearance. It seems that due to Yoo-jin's younger appearance, those around her treated her like a child, and she liked it. This may create an atmosphere of care, attention, and ease in dealing with her. She may have found joy in being seen by others as someone who needed care and attention, creating a warm and supportive atmosphere. Yoo-jin felt drowsy because of the food, but also thought that she had already slept quite a lot. She may have had internal reflections about her sleep schedule and thought she should be more awake or active despite her fatigue. Such internal conflicts between physical needs and expectations can create complex feelings and experiences. Yoo-jin decided that she didn't care, and thinking that she was in no hurry to go anywhere, went to bed. This decision may reflect her sense of calm and contentment, realizing that she didn't need to rush into anything at the moment. Perhaps she found in the dream the comfort and peace she needed at that moment. Yoo-jin spent her days eating and resting, reproducing the eat-sleep cycle. This whole process was repeated throughout the week without anyone saying anything to her. Perhaps this reflects her seclusion or lack of active interaction with others. This routine could have various reasons, whether it is fatigue, a change in circumstances, or Yoo-jin's own choices. Yoo-jin, however, recognized the need for change in her life. She may have felt that her current routine had become monotonous or unsatisfying. The decision to change may be the first step in finding new opportunities, interests, or perspectives on one's life. Yoo-jin watched the sun shining from the window. This moment can bring her peace and joy, illuminating the room with light and creating a pleasant atmosphere. The sight of the sun shining outside the window often affects the mood and can be a source of inspiration and positive emotions. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and everything around is green. Yoo-jin, she, enjoyed the peaceful sounds of nature and the sight of green surroundings. These bright and pleasant elements of the surroundings could create a favorable atmosphere for her and add beauty to her daily life. So she decided to go outside. This choice may be the first step in changing the routine and seeking new experiences. By going outside, Yoo-jin may be seeking to enjoy the fresh air, the beauty of nature, and a change of scenery, which may have a positive effect on her mood and perception of the world around her. She thought about how long it had been since she had been out. This moment may emphasize her awareness of the long period spent inside and a possible desire to change this situation. Going outside may not only be a physical step for her, but also a symbol of returning to the outside world and a new beginning. She saw a gazebo in the distance, and it seemed beautiful to her. This unexpected and beautiful object in the distance may have caused Yoo-jin to feel a sense of wonder and inspiration. Perhaps it was an additional motive to continue walking and exploring the surrounding area. Tired, Yoo-jin thought that she would rest in the gazebo for a while. This decision might be a conscious choice to take a short break and find a cozy place to rest. The gazebo probably provided a secluded place where she could be alone with her thoughts and recover her strength. While she was resting, His Highness was at the table, deciding important matters. This contrast between her rest and the busyness of the high-ranking person may emphasize different aspects of their lives. Perhaps His Highness's important decisions create a context in which even rest becomes important to maintain balance and energy. His Highness listened to everyone shouting at each other and realized that they could not resolve matters. This tense discussion may indicate serious problems in solving important issues, as well as disagreement and conflict within the royal council or His Highness's entourage. Suddenly, the prince became angry and told everyone to be quiet. His sudden reaction may reflect his dissatisfaction with the situation and his desire to restore order and silence. The prince may be seeking to take control of the situation and bring about a more constructive resolution of the issues. He just wasted his time and left. Having decided that there was no point in staying in the situation any longer, The prince decided to leave it. This action may indicate his frustration, dissatisfaction, or desire to avoid useless conflict. However, it could also mean that the prince sees no way to solve the current problems at this time. He was walking down the street and two people were following him, trying to calm him down. This could indicate that the prince may be in a state of emotional turmoil or irritation, and his attendants are trying to calm him down or provide support. It is important to remember that the context and details of the situation can add meaning to what is happening. They were still following him. This indicates that the prince's attendants continue to follow him, perhaps to keep him safe, to placate him, or to help manage his emotional state. The situation seems tense, and the prince probably needs support or conflict resolution. He was walking towards the gazebo and suddenly stopped in front of it. This momentary cessation of movement may indicate a sudden change in his mood or attention to something around him. He may have discovered something interesting that aroused his attention, or he may have simply decided to stop for reflection or rest. He saw her sleeping inside. The sudden discovery of her sleeping inside the gazebo may have triggered unexpected emotions or reactions in him. It may have been an occasion for additional reflection or an influence on his current emotional state. This place is reserved exclusively for the prince, and outsiders are not allowed to enter. Such restrictions may indicate the importance and privacy of this place for the prince. Perhaps the gazebo is a private hideaway or resting place where the prince can find solitude and peace. This place is reserved exclusively for the prince, and outsiders are not allowed to enter. Such restrictions may indicate the importance and privacy of this place for the prince. Perhaps the gazebo is a private hideaway or resting place where the prince can find solitude and peace. He told the people who were following him to get out of there. This indicates that the prince asked his companions or followers to leave the place. Perhaps he wants to be alone with the ones sleeping in the gazebo, or he has some personal or important thoughts, and he told them to bring a plaid. This may indicate that the prince wants a blanket brought to him for comfort, or perhaps to cover a sleeping person. The request to bring a plaid may also speak of care and attention to the comfort of others. The prince gently covered Yujin with a plaid, stroking her hair as she innocently slept. In the silence of the castle, only her steady breathing could be heard. The prince smiled as he looked at her serene face and vowed to protect this moment of happiness in their magical kingdom. He stood silently, gazing into her calm face, illuminated by the moonlight. She seemed especially tender and vulnerable in the moment of peace. His heart filled with tenderness, seeing her breathing peacefully. In that moment, he realized how much he loved this woman and was willing to do anything to make her happiness complete. She woke up with a smile on her face, full of vitality. Joy and wakefulness were clearly visible in her bright eyes. Stretching out, she greeted the new day with optimism. The room resounded with her cheerful laughter and awakened an atmosphere of positivity, as if she was bringing light and joy to this moment. She thought about how wonderful it was to live a life free from routine and without the need to spend days on boring work. There was no place in her thoughts for hard work days devoid of any creative freedom. She dreamed of freedom of choice and the opportunity to follow her passions. Taking a break from the lifeless monotony, she savored every moment of life, being joyful and grateful for every experience. Sparks of delight sparkled in her eyes as she experienced the beautiful things around her. For her, even ordinary moments turned into a source of happiness. Her joy was contagious, like an inner light shining on her life. Walking around the palace complex, she suddenly noticed a beautiful hollow. A horse stood in the distance, gracefully erect against a backdrop of amazing architectural structures. Her gaze was caught by this unexpected moment, and she resolutely headed towards the horse, feeling an inner excitement at the unexpected encounter with the animal. Walking around the palace complex, she suddenly noticed a beautiful hollow. A horse stood in the distance, gracefully erect against a backdrop of amazing architectural structures. Her gaze was caught by this unexpected moment, and she resolutely headed towards the horse, feeling an inner excitement at the unexpected encounter with the animal. She was carrying the basket in her hands when the horse approached curiously and sniffed the contents cautiously. The horse's eyes sparkled with intelligence as it picked up the odors from the basket. The girl watched with a smile as the animal showed interest in her cargo. This tender moment was an unexpected episode in her walk, filling the day with fresh memories. The horse smelled the aroma of the apple, and Yujin slowly took it out of the basket and handed it to the horse. Immediately, the animal began to chew the juicy apple deliciously. The horse's peaceful gaze and the girl's grateful gaze created a warm and unique moment in their meeting, where trust and joy merged into a single performance. She felt someone's gaze on her and slowly turned around. Her eyes reflected surprise as she found someone watching her. The tension in the air created anticipation, and she felt a slight thrill looking at whoever had caught her attention. It turned out to be the boy hiding behind the door, watching her. Yujin felt his attention on her and slowly turned around to meet his gaze. Amusement and understanding flashed in their eyes, creating a moment of mysterious play and mutual interest. The cute little boy, Hans, timidly introduced himself and told us that he was learning how to run a stable. He spoke passionately about his worries about caring for the horses. Then, full of curiosity, he asked Yujin who she was. Their gazes exchanged questions and answers, creating a fun and friendly moment in their unexpected meeting. She looked up in surprise at Hans, the palace worker who took care of the horses. Her eyes expressed surprise and joy at meeting him. They exchanged smiles, and Hans listened attentively while she explained something with gestures. The moment was filled with friendliness and mutual respect. She sweetly said her name was Yujin. Her voice sounded friendly, and her gaze conveyed openness and willingness to communicate. Hans smiled back, and a nonverbal connection was established between them, as if it had magically connected them for a moment. He offered to show her all the horses, and she agreed. Yujin nodded happily and followed Hans to the stables. The air was filled with anticipation of new experiences, and the smile on her face showed that she was ready to enjoy this unexpected adventure in the world of horses and the diligent stable manager. That's how the past day went, full of unexpected meetings, joyful moments, and interesting acquaintances. Yujin enjoyed her time in the palace complex, immersing herself in the atmosphere of magic and friendliness. Meeting Hans and the horses added new bright colors to her adventurous picture. With these memories, she would end the day, preparing for new adventures. And now she was wondering where to go today. A new day with endless possibilities spread out before Yujin. The world was her story's edge, and every corner of the palace provided new mysteries and discoveries. With excitement and anticipation of future adventures, she would begin her next day in this magical place. She thought that the master's territory had become her territory. In her perception, the palace was like her home, where every corner and corridor became part of her history. This sense of belonging added confidence and comfort, as if she had found her place in this magical corner of the world. She decided that she would have a snack in the prince's study today. With a sense of adventure and determination, Yujin headed towards the royal study to enjoy some peace and a tasty treat. This moment was another step for her to explore the mysterious and luxurious world she found herself in. She quietly entered the study, scrutinizing everything around her. The light whisper of rustling parchment, expensive jewelry, and exquisite interior. Every detail created an atmosphere of luxury and grandeur. Yujin immersed herself in the surroundings, feeling the spirit of history that filled every corner of the royal space. Sweet desserts were on the table, and she thought she would rather eat them than let them spoil. The tempting aromas and appetizing appearance of the treats made her hungry and eager to savor the goodies. At this point, her determination took over, and she began to savor the desserts in this royal setting. She began to feel a pain in her stomach. Slightly covered in cold sweat, Yujin realized that something was wrong. A moment ago, the appetizing desserts seemed like the perfect treat, and now she felt an unpleasant pain. Now she was wondering where she should go next. The exploration of the palace continued, and Yujin was deciding which corner of this magical place she should direct her steps to. Once again, uncharted adventures opened up before her, and each choice added new shades to her amazing day. She stood hesitating, not knowing what to do. With the palace and its many halls and gardens all around her, the choice was not easy. Maybe she would decide to explore some interesting rooms, stroll through the manicured gardens, or simply find a cozy place to rest. The complexity of the choices added a zest of anticipation to this mysterious day. She went to the maids and politely asked where the library was. The maids, accustomed to such inquiries, smiled and kindly guided Yujin through the corridors of the palace to a place where she could enjoy the wisdom and peace of immersing herself in the pages of books. The maid kindly showed her where the books in the library were located. With a grateful look, Yujin headed over to where the world of words and stories awaited her. In the library, she hoped to find some interesting book to immerse herself in other worlds and forget herself in literary adventures for a while. Yujin was shocked to see how many books were in the library. The endless shelves lined with books gave the impression of a boundless world of words. Her heart ached with excitement as she imagined all the stories and knowledge hidden among the pages. It was a paradise for a lover of reading. She picked up her book, enveloped in an atmosphere of wisdom and magic, and headed for her room. In her hands, she held the key to another world that she was going to explore in the privacy of her space. With each step, she felt the anticipation of new adventures in the pages of the book fill her heart. She entered one of the rooms and saw the prince. He was asleep, sitting on a couch, leaning back. The peaceful sleep and his face expressing calmness left an impression on her. Yujin resolutely decided not to disturb him and quietly left the room, leaving the prince in his peaceful dreams. She thought he was having nightmares. The prince's gaze was tense, as if his mind was immersed in a troubled dream world. Yujin felt compassion for him and decided it was best to leave him alone without disturbing his sleep. She pondered what to do, wake him up or leave him alone. Her compassion for the prince made her think of his peace, but the desire to share that feeling and find out what was bothering him could be strong. Yujin weighed her choice, facing the dilemma of letting the prince sleep or trying to help him get rid of his nightmares. She, not knowing what to do, decided to just crouch down next to him. Yujin felt that her presence could be a comfort, even if it didn't solve the nightmares. Sitting quietly, she pondered her next steps, wanting to be a support the moment the prince woke up. In the silence of the room, the pleasant whisper of the fireplace could be heard, and its warmth affectionately filled the space. Yujin felt peaceful from the soft glow of the flames and felt the warmth spreading around. This moment created an atmosphere of coziness and tranquility, as if temporarily making her forget about worldly worries. Sitting next to the prince, Yujin gradually felt peaceful and safe, and tired from the incredible experiences of the day, she slowly fell asleep, snuggled on his shoulder. The warmth of the fireplace, the whispering flames, and the calmness of the prince created a cozy place for her to rest and sleep. At that moment, she drifted into a dream world, enjoying a peaceful sleep in the arms of the palace. The prince sensed that something was happening and slowly directed his gaze towards Yujin. His eyes, reflecting surprise and tenderness, slid over her calm face, and he realized that she had fallen asleep relying on his shoulder. The quiet moment of the two worlds touching, the awakened prince and the sleeping Yujin, created an unprecedented pattern of peace and warmth in the room. The prince felt Yujin hugging him. Different feelings flashed through his soul: tenderness, surprise, but also some awkwardness. With a quiet smile, he resolutely decided not to wake her up and let Yujin sleep, giving her this world of peace and comfort. The tender moment stayed in their minds, creating a warm memory of that magical day. The prince remained sitting still so as not to wake her. He carefully avoided movements to preserve the peaceful moment that was created in their unexpected encounter. Looking at the sleeping Yujin, he could feel this quiet moment becoming special and unique in this atmosphere of comfort and peace. The prince looked at her with a smile and an interested look. There was warmth and curiosity in his eyes. Perhaps he was wondering what kind of dreams she was having, or perhaps he was just enjoying this carefree moment. The prince's peaceful smile reflected his delight at this unexpected turn of events and his tenderness for the sleeping Yujin. The prince slowly stroked Yujin's head, creating a light and gentle atmosphere. His touch was full of care and warmth, as if he was trying to convey his tenderness and support to the sleeping Yujin. This moment was another link in their amazing interaction in this magical place. She could feel the warmth he radiated in every affectionate touch he made on her hair. This warmth framed her in safety and care, creating a kind of cocoon of comfort and tranquility around them. At this moment, the prince and Yujin felt a connection, like a language of tenderness speaking without words. She woke up slowly, remaining on the edge of two worlds, the world of dreams and reality. The feeling of transition between sleep and wakefulness could be gradual and peaceful. Upon waking up, Yujin felt horrified as she discovered that she was sleeping on the prince's lap. This unexpected moment might have caused her confusion and excitement. Embarrassment and bewilderment might have flashed in her eyes, and the question of how she got there became urgent. While the prince may have woken up earlier and her sleeping on his lap was an unexpected surprise, the prince, seeing her embarrassment, reassured her by telling her that everything was fine and suggested that she go back to sleep. His benevolent attitude and understanding created relief in this moment of unfortunate awakening. Yujin, hearing his words, felt relieved and grateful for the prince's patience in this awkward situation. At this point, she began to wonder why she was on the prince's lap. Mixed feelings of embarrassment, surprise, and misunderstanding were rushing through her mind. Yujin tried to remember how she was in such an unusual situation and why the prince reacted so calmly to her presence on his lap. He stroked her head and soothed her, and Yujin fell back into a sweet sleep. The prince may have continued to be caring and gentle, creating an environment of comfort and safety. The tranquility in their interaction consumed her again, and she drifted into new dreams, leaving behind the excitement of the previous moment.